Hello and welcome to another episode of Cinema Spoilers. I'm Zipp. You may know me as Bell-Kanapaux. I'm a 22-year-old author and audiobook narrator, and I'm joined by...
I'm Cameron. Nah. Hi, I'm Cameron. I'm the co-host of this magnificent show.
And you like...
I like movies.
You've said it every time. We're on episode like 4 or 5.
Hold up. I'm Cameron, and I like movies.
Yay!
So this week we're talking about The Grudge.
Yes. Surprisingly, both of us had never seen it before. We had seen Scary Movie, was it?
3, I think.
I think 3 is the one with the aliens, and it may be The Ring.
Yeah. Oh. Well, 1 is Scream, and 2 is...
It isn't 3. Because Brenda is fighting the Ring in the TV, and she's Anna Faris's character is blonde.
Is it 4?
No, it's not 4.
Because 2 is the scary house.
Oh shit! It may be 3. 4 is the aliens. 4 is the aliens, because we don't really fuck with 4. Cameron's looking it up, but we'd seen whichever Scary Movie it is, their rendition of The Grudge, and yeah, it was funny, but also I was quite scared of it, honestly. Can I be really honest?
It's 4 with The Grudge.
Okay, it is Scary Movie 4 then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Scary Movie 4 is the one where it's the aliens invading. And then 5's the one where it starts to go real shit.
Well, that's because the Wayans brothers were no longer doing it at that point.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to pay Anna Faris properly incomparably to the other actors in the movie. So it ended up being quite awful. And it's not the actor's fault. It's just a combination of no one wants to pay properly.
And not the right people from the original movies.
Yes.
I guarantee that they probably did a lot of off-script stuff. Just whatever they wanted, so...
Yeah.
You don't get the same with the girl that played Tiffany and Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Oh, you mean Ashley Tisdale?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think her name's Tiffany.
Okay, well, something with a T.
I can't remember what her name is. I haven't watched Zack and Cody in a long time.
I don't know.
Goodness
you know who I'm
me.
talking about.
Bailey.
He's itchy.
He acts itchy. He's not. I think he's just looking to do something.
He likes the sound of his collar.
Yeah, he does. He likes running around. He runs around all stupid now. He runs around like a woman who knows her ponytail's gonna swing. Because you can kind of control, obviously it's gonna move.
He runs like Anna Faris.
Oh no. Oh no. In the first Scream movie when she's making fun of Neve Campbell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then she runs like that through all the other movies.
Well, yeah, but it was just because she started the precedent of that.
Fair enough.
So, anyway, this episode we decided to watch The Grudge because we'd never watched it before, and I was like, I think we should watch The Grudge. So, before we start, this movie is a little bit complicated because I would say that there are 12 main characters and 2 very important minor characters. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree.
Okay. And the movie does a few time jumps and goes back and forth between different stories or different times where the house was inhabited by different people. So, in order to fully understand and break this down, we're going to start with a character list. And normally we wouldn't do this. Normally we would just kind of talk about the reviews, talk about the movie, talk about things we enjoyed, do a synopsis and a run-through of the movie. But today we are starting with this character list since there are
so many.
There are so many characters and they are all very integral to the story. So, firstly we have Karen, and she's the protagonist through the movie. She's played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, and I love Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's Daphne as well in the live action. Yeah. So, I love her. I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well. My mom was super into it when it was coming out. Because it was coming out in, like, the early 2000s.
Uh-huh.
Maybe, like, late 90s, early 2000s. And I loved it. We would watch it before school. Because she would go to college and I would go to school.
Yeah.
So we would watch it. But anyway, it starts with Karen. And she's the protagonist through the movie. She comes to Japan because her boyfriend is an exchange student. So Doug is Karen's boyfriend. And that's the exchange student. They're their first group of people. The second group of people is Jennifer, Susan, Matthew, and Emma. Now, Matthew, I would say, is the bridge between all of these, the second group of characters. He's the patriarch of the first family to move into the Seiki house since the tragedy. And he has a mother named Emma, and she has dementia. So, Emma is pretty much silent throughout the whole film. His wife, Jennifer, constantly checks in on Emma, and he's brought his sister, Susan, to Japan as well. So, Matthew's there because he got a job in Japan, and they find this wonderful house, and he brings basically his whole family, minus Susan, to this house to live in. Then, the next group of characters is Yoko and Alex. Yoko is Emma's caregiver. Alex is Yoko and Karen's boss. Now, they work for a volunteer care facility where the volunteers will go to someone's home and offer some support, whether that be cleaning, cooking. We see Yoko making phone calls at the very beginning of the movie and cleaning up after Emma and offering to help with various things. So they work for that company and Alex is their boss. The next group of people is the Seiki family, which includes Kayako, Toshio, Teiko. Those are the three, and as well as the cat. I forgot to mention the cat.
I mean, the cat's just there.
The cat's the family! The cat as well. So, let's see. Kayako is Toshio's mother, and she's the wife of Tako. So, they are the first family to live in this house. The next group of people, no, it's just one person, is Detective Nakagawa, and he's the lead detective on the case whenever there's some incidences in the house that we'll get into later. Then there is the last group of people, which are the side characters who are also very important to the story, very integral to the story, but they do not take up much time on screen. So that is Peter and Maria. So Peter is a professor in Japan, and Maria is his wife. And that's the group of characters that we have. So, it can be quite confusing if you're watching, because, firstly, it's a great movie. It's a great movie. I will spoil. Really good. I will spoil how we felt about it. Wonderful movie. But it can be a little bit confusing if you're not watching the screen for the entire thing. Like, you need to pay attention. This is not a movie that you could just, put on in the background and be like, oh, I love this movie. You didn't watch it if you're not watching the movie. So, this movie, surprisingly to me, was rated kind of mid. On IMDb, it's rated a 5.9 out of 10.
I could see that. Her acting's a little odd, but
Sarah Michelle Gellar? Karen?
Yeah, the main character.
Karen?
Yeah, Karen. Karen.
And it's a 41% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, yeah, I mean, I could get why people aren't, like, super stoked about it, especially if they come from, like, our perspective of watching a spoofed version first.
Yeah.
And then they go to it and they're like, what? This is a serious movie? Because sometimes when you watch a spoofed version of something, or like a parody version of something, you expect it to be a little bit silly when you watch the original content. Have you ever expected it to be a little silly?
I don't ever go into movies expecting them to be silly, especially if they spoof them, only because they're trying to, like, purposely make it, like, even crazier. However, whenever there's something, like, ridiculous, like, let's say, Vampires Suck and Twilight, when she gets out with the cactus, it's like, why does she have a cactus to begin with? And
because
that's the
she's
only
from
thing.
Arizona.
Right, but why did she have a cactus to begin with?
It's in the
and
books.
then whenever they do Vampire Suck, she gets out with, like, the biggest cactus ever. Okay. Hilarious.
Yes.
But it just goes to show, like, where did they get that from? And then whenever you see it in the movie, it's like, oh, they're also ridiculous acting in that movie.
Well, here's my thing. I was introduced to parodies because I didn't know that Scary Movie was, like, a parody when I first watched it. I was very young when I first watched it, so don't blame me. I was, like, 7. But I was really, really introduced to parody that I knew was parody. I was first introduced to, like, parody that I knew was parody through music video parodies on YouTube, like Bart Baker and the Key of Awesome.
Duck Key of Awesome.
Okay, sorry. Duck Key of Awesome. So, that was the first time I ever experienced parody. And when you looked at the videos, when it began, because we both grew up in the inception of the parody music video. Well, not really the inception, because Weird Al was doing stuff like that, but I guess the renaissance of it, the new birth of it, where it was in its heyday, and videos on YouTube would get millions of views because they were parody videos. I grew up watching the first ones, like Kesha TikTok, and, various other things, and they were kind of similar to the music video, at least in the beginning, right? Where, like, the Kesha music video was done by, like, multiple people, and it ended up being very stupid. But, like, the scene where she's in the bathtub and she's brushing her teeth and all of that, it was taken from the source material. So, I always kind of assumed that the source material of a parody would be a little bit silly. So, that was my own issue, But I really did enjoy this movie.
It was really good.
Yeah, it kept me on my toes. I'm gonna be honest with you. There were some scenes where they had, like... I really enjoyed this. It's Japanese horror, in case you haven't caught on yet. But I really enjoyed that they didn't fully use jump scares, like, all the time.
Yeah.
'Cause some movies do that, where it's a scary movie and it's jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. And it's like you just learned.
These are nice and spaced out. There's not any, there's some, like, horror, like, music to go along with it before, but there's some American movies where they just play that track, like, minutes and minutes and minutes before, where it's like, okay, I get it. There's something coming up, but y'all have played it for so long that now I'm not even tense anymore. I'm just like, where is it?
You know what I really did enjoy, though? In one of the recent Scream movies that had the guy who was in 13 Reasons Why, and was also in the band Wallows. That one, I think it may be Scary Movie 5. I think. Yeah, it definitely is 5. I really enjoyed this scene before his kill, where he's, like, opening the fridge, and it's like, ah! And then it's just, like, normal until he's in the shower. Like, it keeps, like, building up to a jump scare, but it doesn't do it.
Mm.
I love Scream, and I think that it works off jump scares.
But that's why Scream did it, because they're the parody, too.
Yeah, they are.
They parody everyone. That's their whole genre, is that, man, fuck these other movies.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it our style. And also, we're gonna break the fourth wall while doing it. So that's why they did the music. Nothing led up to it.
Well, you know what?
And then, whenever it happened, there was probably no music, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. See, so they're like, it's ridiculous. Why are you playing it for so long? Stop. Like, you can play it a couple seconds before, but not like...
Yeah, Well, you know what else is funny? That I accidentally brought that up, but Sarah Michelle Gellar is in one of the Scream movies. She's the sober sister when Sydney's in college and she's in a sorority, or she's rushing a sorority.
Uh-huh.
And
she's the one that stays in the
house, and that's why she ends up getting killed. Sorry, spoiler.
Spoilers
for a movie that's like 20 years old.
Yes.
Anyway, The Grudge was directed by Takashi Shimizu, and it was produced by Sam Raimi, which I knew because I watched the credits that happened at the beginning, but I also wrote down in my notes the opening sequence equals OG Spider-Man trilogy. Oh wait, it's Sam Raimi.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It looked like Spider-Man 3 where the Venom's like crawling around.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I really enjoyed that. I think Sam Raimi's a great producer. I really do enjoy his movies. So, let's get into the plot of it. We're quite deep into this video and really haven't spoken anything about the movie.
I mean, we've said that we liked it.
Yeah. I think we're fine. So, the movie itself opens with text on screen explaining that a curse comes when people die in rage. And then the first scene shows Peter jumping off of his balcony in front of his wife Maria. Then it's just the opening credits. the OG Spider-Man trilogy credits.
OG.
Yeah. And you don't really know what the hell's going on. So, then the next scene happens, and Yoko's introduced. She's the caregiver for Emma, and as she's working in the house, she hears creaking in an unoccupied room. She opens the door, and she hears the creaking sort of over the ceiling and into the closet. And so she opens the closet door, and she finds the entryway to the spiderweb-covered, smoked-out attic.
Yeah.
There's so much, like, the attic is grimy.
There's so much fog.
Yes!
Just skipping a little bit ahead, when the detective goes back up there...
There's so much fog.
His flashlight beam you could see all the fog from the beam. It was ridiculous.
Yes. Anyway, she lights her lighter, and she goes and she does, like, a full circle. She looks almost 360 degrees. But then the Grudge gets her.
And then gets you.
Ah! Yeah.
Ah! SpongeBob.
Yes. And so the Grudge, like, pulls her up into the attic. And then the next scene opens on Sarah Michelle Gellar in bed. And she's watching this man who turns out to be Doug, her boyfriend. And she's watching him, like, kind of look around for clean clothes, and he's sniffing clothes, and she's like, bottom drawer. And he's like, oh, you know me so well. And she's like, come back to bed. He's like, well, I'm gonna miss my midterm. And it's revealed she put all the clocks back 1 hour. So they could...
Cuddle.
They could, do some stuff in the morning. Yeah. So, originally when I watched the movie, this is not canon. This is just what I thought happened. I thought that it was actually, like, Sarah Michelle Gellar was in bed. She watches this Doug guy go and do all that stuff, and that's in the past. And then the scene where Peter the Professor jumps off the balcony is in the future. And I thought that Sarah Michelle Gellar's character was dating Peter the Professor. And that I didn't know.
First time watching the movie, and the way that they all look alike is kind of odd.
Yeah, all of the American people...
Actresses.
Yeah. They all have kind of similar haircuts at the beginning.
See, that's what I thought the entire... Like, I've never watched the movie, so when I heard The Grudge, I thought maybe it was just going after, like, anyone that looked like her. No. It was just coincidence, I guess.
So, they had kind of similar haircuts. They both had long hair with, like, tiny little bang, and...
Blonde.
Well, no, Maria is a brunette.
Oh, is she?
But, yes. But Sarah Michelle Gellar is a little bit of a lighter blonde, but in the bedroom, in the scene where she's watching Doug try to, like, scramble around to get dressed for his midterm, it doesn't look that bright. Her hair looks still, like, pretty brunette. So, I was just confused. That's not what happened, though. These are two separate groups of people in two separate parts of Japan. Back to the story, though. They jaywalk after they, get it on. They go and they jaywalk through the street. Karen stops to observe a few mourners in a cemetery. She explains that it's a Buddhist practice to light incense while you're mourning the person at the gravesite. Then she goes to the school, and she finds out that she has her first... Or she goes to the care facility, and she finds out that she has her first case, which is Emma. She travels through the city to find Emma's house. This takes, 2 whole minutes in the movie.
Yeah.
She's, looking everywhere. She's got a map. She's talking to people in her broken Japanese. It's not necessarily broken, but she does have a heavy accent in it.
She doesn't know. She don't know yet.
Yeah. So, she finally gets to Emma's house, which is a Seiki house, and she knocks at the door, but nobody responds. She knocks a few times, still no response. So she opens the door to find that the place is kind of filled with trash and, gross. And she sees, she walks in and she looks around and she sees that Emma's fallen out of bed after she soiled it. So the bed also, something to just, add a little bit of context. So Emma's bed is a mattress directly on the floor, and that's supposed to, help her because she can't go upstairs, she can't go downstairs, but that's not quite explained yet. So we just know that she's a disabled woman who tried to crawl out of her bed after she soiled it. Sorry, I gotta go to the next page.
Totally fine.
Dip, 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 dip. I can't stop dip, 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 dipping. So, Karen introduces herself to Emma, and Emma doesn't respond at all. She bathes Emma, and she cleans up her sheets, and then she begins cleaning the house. She gets all the trash off the floor, and she goes with a vacuum up to the second floor to see if maybe this is as dirty as the bottom floor. And she stumbles on the room where Yoko died. And she walks in and she sees it's quite trashed, but she sees that the closet itself is taped up, and she hears this cat meowing. So she was like, oh no, this cat is stuck in the closet. And so she rips the tape down, and she opens the closet door, and she sees the cat, and then she sees the boy holding the cat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
a little late for that.
Then she also finds a book, and that is a diary. So she calls Alex, and which is her boss, by the way, and she reads the book, and she finds out that it's a diary, and she finds a picture of the boy's family, so Toshio's family, but she doesn't know his name yet. And the mother's face is cut out of the picture. So she tries to speak to the boy, and this is where her very Americanized Japanese comes out, and this is what inspired the scene where they just name Japanese brands in Scary Movie, and I totally get why they would write something like that. And I'm not gonna sit here on my high horse and say that I have a perfect Japanese accent. I've never spoken Japanese. I've never. So, I would have a very Americanized accent. But if you know that you're moving to an area, you might want to get a teacher that's from the area.
True.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, Frau Schultz, who was my German teacher in high school, she always said, the best way to learn a language is to learn it from a native speaker. So, learning German, you can tell she's from the Rhineland, so you could tell that she's from the Rhineland.
Mm-hmm.
Learning a language to become a speaker of that language and to converse with people that are native to that area, it's better to learn from a native speaker. But anyway, she finds out that the boy's name is Toshio. So then she hears a weird noise and she goes to check on Emma. And Emma sees the Grudge as the Grudge walks by. And she's talking to Emma. And she's like, Emma, you just need some rest. And you see in the corner, black hair and like squiggles start to come from the corner of the room. Not squiggles. And the Grudge finally shows herself to Karen. By the way, I will be referring to the Grudge as the Grudge when she's the Grudge. But when she's a person, I'll refer to her as Kekio. So,
Just so you know.
Easier to keep up with, in my opinion. The next scene is in the past. It's one of those where it goes back and forth. And it's Emma's son and daughter-in-law and her own daughter. And originally, when I watched the movie, before we get into it real quick, I thought that the son was the guy from the care center. I thought he was Alex. He's not Alex. He's his own person. He's Matthew. So, like I said, Emma's son, her daughter, and her daughter-in-law are touring a house with a real estate agent. And Emma, at this point, it's a few years in the past. I think it's 3 or 4 because I read the Wikipedia page and it says that some of the movie takes place in 2004, but some of it takes place in 2001. So it could be 3 or 4 years. She's a little bit mobile. She's able to move around on her own. She speaks a little bit, not too much at all. But she's still sick. She still has dementia at that point. So they end up looking around the house and they say, well, there's no stairs. It's perfect for you, Mom. And she gets lost. Like, the young adults are speaking and Emma just wanders off. And they find her staring at the ceiling where the attic would be. So she walked up the stairs, like, on her own and found the attic. And she's just staring at it. And everybody's kind of a little bit creeped out. But they're like, well, just come downstairs, lady. So then it switches over to the realtor. And he's walking through the house, and he goes into the bathroom, and he finds a tub of black water. And he's like, let me pull this drain stopper. They don't need to see all this.
No, because that was too funny. Because thinking of the Scary Movie version, I was like, oh my god. No wonder why in Scary Movie he's over here with, like, the hair all in his head and getting in the shower.
I thought for real that he was gonna, like, actually get in the bathtub. Get in?
Yes.
I know that I should have just gone into it with, like, an empty head, no thoughts.
Nah.
I couldn't. Because he ends up taking off his jacket and rolling up his sleeve. But when he first takes off his jacket, you're like, what's this man about to do? And then
yeah, because he folds it up real nice and makes it look all presentable. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like, are you about to take off your shirt next? What about your pants after?
Yeah, no. It's like, what?
So he rolls up his sleeve and he reaches into the bathtub to pull the stopper out. Because he tries to pull it. It has a very long chain that's hanging out of the bathtub. He tries to pull it, but it won't budge. So he's like, I gotta get it from the thing. So he goes to do it, and he pulls out a chunk of black hair. And he gets a little freaked out, and he ends up, like, throwing it into the tub and like, freaking out on the floor. And the son walks in, Matthew, and he says, "We'll take the house."
Yeah, we'll take it.
He doesn't even, like, really check up on him.
Does not question this dude that's, like, soaking wet and...
Yeah.
And could, like, anybody else in the house could have clearly heard that he's over here struggling.
Yeah, he's so shocked. And he's in awe. He's sitting there like, ah, 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 ah. And Matthew walks in, "We'll take it."
We'll take it. It's lovely.
Yes. It was a funny scene. So, then the next scene is a few weeks later after they've already moved in. And Jennifer, Matthew's wife, decides to divulge to him that she's having a little bit of trouble adjusting. She goes and she doesn't know Japanese, so, she doesn't expect people to speak English, but she doesn't know Japanese, so it's hard for her to connect with anybody, and it's hard for her to know exactly what can be done to remedy this situation. She can't make any friends because she doesn't speak their language. When she goes out to the store, she can't really read what's anything. And that's what the next scene is after that. She goes to the store, and she's trying to figure out what exactly everything is. And she's in the ramen aisle, and she has to poke a hole into the ramen cup to, like, try to figure out what flavor it might be.
Yeah.
But that's, again, like, you wouldn't move to a foreign country as an American and expect that there would be stuff in English.
I was surprised that the caution tape said, please keep out or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess there's enough Americans in Japan that they need to have it in English.
Because here's my thing. It's one thing for someone to move to the United States, a country which has no official language, it has no official religion, and it has no official culture. It's one thing to move there and to have, for instance, in areas that are closer to the Mexican border, there's some places like restaurants that have English and Spanish, and there's some places that just have Spanish. That is completely fine. There's also areas closer to the Canadian border that have French listed on some of the stuff, depending on how close they are to Quebec and the French Quarter. And... Quebec. So, it's one thing when you go to a country with no official language, no official religion, you don't have to assimilate to that area. Because, specifically in countries like America, it's called a melting pot for a reason. There are so many different types of people that live in America, and you don't have to assimilate. Anywhere you go, you surely can find at least one other person that shares a similarity to you. But in a country where there is an official language, like, you wouldn't go to France and expect them to speak perfect English, or to be able to speak to you and carry a perfect conversation with no road bumps, with no miscommunication.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to expect that. So, yes, a lot of countries, people do speak English as a second language. But you should still, before going to a country, or going to live in a country, should know the official language, or be working to learn the official language. And she wasn't working to learn it.
No.
That was the thing. And I was like, dude, what's wrong with this lady? Like, that's my whole thing. So, her alienation is partially self-driven. So, that's like, I can't feel bad for you, I can't feel that bad for you, because you didn't make an effort to learn any Japanese before moving. You knew that your husband was moving because of his job to Japan. You didn't learn any Japanese. That's on you. Like, you don't have to know English to make it through in America. Like, yes, it would be pretty difficult depending on what area you're in, because, a lot of places do have, like, different languages. Like, in Louisiana, really deep south, you might encounter people speaking Creole, you know? So, it really just depends on what area you're in, because the United States is so large. But going to Japan, I would probably learn a little bit of Japanese from a native speaker. Enough to get by. Enough to know, like, oh, this is the grocery store. This is what pork means. This is what beef means. This is what fish means. You know, she didn't even know that much. So, I can't feel too bad for that part of it.
She was pretty shit out of luck with her.
Yeah, it was her own actions.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, after she goes to the grocery store, she's shown sleeping on the couch. And on the coffee table in front of her is a cup of water, almost entirely full, by the way. There's only like a half an inch missing from this water cup.
Yeah.
And a cup of ramen. And it's full. Like, she put the water in, she did not eat it. And then she went to sleep on the couch. And so she's woken up by the cup of water and the cup of ramen being knocked over off of the table. She goes to blame her mother-in-law immediately.
For real.
She goes over to her and, like, looks down at her on the bed and goes, if you want something, you can just ask. Another reason why I can't feel too bad for her.
For real. It's like, dude, she's clearly still laying there.
Because here's the thing. If the mother-in-law had thrown something to, like, knock this stuff down, it would not have landed in the middle of them. It would have landed on the other side of the coffee table. It would not have landed halfway between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. Like, use your brain for just a second, you know?
She's smoking crack.
Anyway, she goes to look at it while she's, you know, being rude as fuck to the mother-in-law. She goes to look and she sees that there are footprints in the water. But it's not like a footprint that would be in a spill of something. It's a footprint that is wet. It's not like you walk in the snow, there are boot prints in the snow sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You walk out of the shower, you're leaving wet footprints. That's exactly what it's like. So, she goes and follows the footsteps, but then she sees the cat on the... She's ended up being led to the staircase, and she sees the cat, the black cat that was the other cat from the family before. And so she follows it. She tries to follow it, but someone picks up the cat and just disappears. So Jen goes upstairs and she's like, hey, is anybody here? Not speaking Japanese.
Yeah, yet again, not speaking Japanese.
Like, you don't just go like hey, is anybody there? Japanese translation. You know, that's stupid.
Konnichiwa, hello.
Dude,
Nothing.
By the way, in the scene where she's talking to her husband about what a tough time she's having, she doesn't look to understand what he's saying. He says, arigato, and she looks and she's like she tilts her head like a curious dog, and she just smiles. There's nothing behind those eyes. She doesn't even know any basic phrases. Anyway, she looks around upstairs, and a door closes her in, and then the screen goes to black. So, in the next scene, Matthew comes home to find the house a disaster, similar to how it was found when... I was about to say Yoko. It's Karen. When Karen walks in and finds the house destroyed. It looks very similar to that. So, he sees that his mom is pretty rattled, and he asks where Jen is, and she kind of points with her eyes upstairs, and he finds Jen petrified on the bed. She is having a panic attack to end all panic attacks. And Toshio screams at Matt. He pops up from the side of the bed and just goes, ah!
Freddy Fazbear-esque.
Yes, very scary. So, then Toshio runs out of the room. And his footsteps can be heard all over. He's just like, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Yes. And then Matt, like, goes up against the door. Because he's quite frightened. He's like, what are you doing? Who is this random kid in my house? And then Toshio screams over Matt's head, and the screen goes to black. So you're left to assume what happened. You know what I mean? And then the next scene happens. The care attendant comes to Emma's house to find Emma dead, and Karen is in shock. So Alex came to the house, and he finds that this has happened. The detectives arrive and ask the attendant to come in, to make a statement the next day. It's revealed that Matt did not make it into work. The attendant tells police that Yoko is missing. The police listen to the voicemail from Jen. This is from Susan, sorry. Susan leaves a voicemail, and it's revealed, kind of, that Yoko had the phone when she died, so they find the phone in the closet. So, this voicemail that was left on the machine is from the sister, but the reason it's a voicemail instead of going through the phone is because Yoko died. And nobody knows that Yoko died with the phone in her hand. Because she has the house phone. So, the detective listens to the voicemail, and he goes and he pushes on the receiver to find the house phone, and they go upstairs, and this is the first time that they've cleared the scene upstairs.
Yeah, I was really like, yo, y'all are sweeping the floor of the house and putting out, like, crime scene tape all around the house, and you've made it a crime scene. And yet, y'all didn't go upstairs to make sure that no one's up there?
Yeah.
Because this is a missing persons issue. Y'all didn't go upstairs?
Mm-hmm.
What the heck? There was no officers up there either, like, canvassing it.
Yeah.
Like, just marking, like, hey, this is what we found. Japanese police in this movie suck.
Kind of.
In that movie.
Yeah.
In that
kind
movie.
Of, no.
I don't know what their actual procedures are, but whatever.
Yeah, well, here's the thing also, is that this police officer and his partner knew that this was the scene of a horrendous crime 3 or 4 years prior. Three. Okay. 3 years prior. They know about that. So really, this whole thing happens because it's not shown in the movie, there's a day progression, but you can kind of infer it, that day one, Matthew and Jen end up going and doing what they have to do. Matthew goes to work, Jen goes and does whatever. Jen ends up getting very frightened when she comes home, but in between that, so Matthew and Jen go and do whatever. Yoko comes in. Yoko gets killed by the Grudge. Then Jen comes home and she gets petrified by Toshio. Like, she's just very scared of him. And by the Grudge. And then she and Matt die, and they are placed in the attic. Karen comes to replace Yoko for the day. She's a substitute. And she finds... she sees the Grudge, and she's petrified, and Emma dies. So then Alex, from the care facility, is like, hey, you never came back. So he starts to report it, and that's the progression of events up until this point. Mm-hmm. So the police officers go into the attic, and they find a jawbone with teeth, and they find Matthew and Jennifer. And first of all, you don't know who the jawbone is. You don't know who it is. So then the next scene, Karen wakes up in the hospital, and Doug comforts her. And she's like, I'm not sure what I saw. And Doug goes, you just saw an old lady pass away in her sleep. And she's like, is that what they're saying? And she's like, no, there's something horrific in that house. But she doesn't quite know what it is. Like, she's not at all sure what's wrong, but she knows that there's something very wrong in the house. Sorry, I gotta get to my next page. So the next scene is when Susan calls. That's Matthew's sister, by the way. Susan is calling to leave the voicemail. So she says, basically, hey, I'm calling in to check on Mom. I haven't heard anything from the care attendant. Can you please call me back whenever you get this? And she says, I'm leaving work right now. And then she goes to exit the office. She goes down a hallway, but she keeps hearing this weird noise behind her. So she, speeds up a little bit, and then she stops in an adjacent hallway, and she looks behind her, but she doesn't see anything. So then she goes into a stairway, and she gets a call from Matthew. And the call is just, it's grudge noises. And she's like, stop it, Matthew, this isn't funny. So then, she hears more noises, more person noises behind her, and she sees the lights in the stairwell flickering. And they start to flicker off and off and off and off, depending on the floors. So then after that, the Grudge can be seen making her way up the stairs. And of course Susan is very, very upset and very afraid. So she runs back out the door into the hallway. So she runs, and it's assumed, it doesn't quite say security on big letters in the door, but she runs to the security office, and she tells the guard that there's something on floor 10. By the way, she's speaking Japanese to him, so why couldn't Jennifer learn?
She's attempting to. She's still frightened, so she can't,
she's still frightened, but she knows the Japanese to tell him there's something on floor 10.
Yeah.
So, the sister-in-law could learn, but she couldn't.
Right.
So, anyway, she watches on the TV that shows the security footage, the live security footage. She watches the security guard walk across the hallway of floor 10, but, he's not seeing anything. He goes into the stairwell, doesn't see anything, and doesn't it flicker a little bit? She starts to see...
Yeah, it starts to flicker, and then it starts to get all grainy, and then the Grudge starts to, just start growing from the floor as, a black blob, and then she starts flickering forward to, walk towards the camera.
And doesn't Susan see that?
She sees it coming towards the camera, and she's like, fuck this shit, and runs out.
So, after that, she gets a cab. By the way, the security officer's already out of the hallway entirely. The floor 10 hallway, he's out of it entirely when that happens. So, he's not in any danger at all at any point in this.
He's on his way back to the security office man, that was a crazy bitch.
Yeah,
Crazy American.
So, she runs and she gets a cab. And she gets into the elevator for her apartment building. And the doors to the elevator are glass. And with each floor, you can see a naked Toshio just on each floor, naked.
Yeah. He's not naked in any of the rest of the movie.
He's covered.
Yeah.
He seems to be naked. He doesn't have any visible clothing on, but he's definitely covered. Or the shot cuts up instead of cutting down. You don't see his feet, you see his knees.
Austin Powers, covering everything that needs to be covered.
Yeah, I guess so. So, you see him. So, she walks into her apartment, and it's labeled with her name, which I thought was wild. I've never seen in my entire life an apartment be labeled with your name. So... weird.
It's I guess New York ones where you buzz the number and it has the name in there.
I guess so.
I think that's what it is.
So
because she needed to buzz in her...
Hold on.
Okay.
So she goes and she sits down on her couch and she's obviously very rattled. Like anybody would be. I would be super rattled. And she gets a call and it's Matthew. For real, this time, the phone call is Matthew, and she's talking to him, and he's like, hey, where are you? I'm downstairs. Which one's yours again? And she tells him the apartment number, and she goes, I'll buzz you in. And so she pushes the buzz button, and she sees this rabbit's foot in her backpack with a camera, But then the doorbell rings immediately. And so she's like, what the heck? Like, it would not be from downstairs up to 160.
She just buzzed him in. How did he get to her door that quickly?
So she looks through the peephole, and it's Matthew. So she opens the door, and there's nothing there. Oh! She still has the phone in her hand, so she throws it. And by that point, though, it's making grudge noises. So she locks the door, and she puts the chain on, and then she runs to her bed, and she has the rabbit's foot in her hand now. And so you see the sheets at the bottom of the bed start to move, and then she lifts up the sheet, and the Grudge is there to get her! Ooh. So the next scene is Karen, and she's being interviewed by the detective. Information is exchanged by Karen. She's telling him, like, I know all of this stuff. And the detective is already aware of this information. So she finds out that the couple, Matt and Jen, died in the attic. And she was there the whole time that they were dead in the attic. So she's a little bit freaked out by that. And then, by the way, she's in the hospital at this point. The detective gets pulled out of the hospital room while he's interviewing Karen, and he's speaking with another detective, and they talk about a discovery in the attic from 3 years before. The next scene is Karen meeting Doug at work. He takes the day off, and Karen is describing her feelings about the house. She says, I think there's something very evil in the house, and they're on the bus heading home, and she sees the Grudge in the window, and that's one of the only jump scares in the entire movie.
Well, and then also whenever the detective's reviewing the tape.
Yeah, I said, but it's one of the only jump scares in the movie. Yeah. I didn't say it's the only jump scare in the movie. Silly goose.
One of.
Yeah.
My bad.
So then it shows Karen showering at home, and she's washing her hair, and she gets to the crown of her head, and she feels the hand, and she's like, ah! And Toshio haunts the care attendant, who is Alex, as he's leaving his apartment. And then he sees Yoko, who is missing. And Yoko looks very disheveled. Her apron is on all sideways, and she's got blood kind of on her.
And just to set the scene, he's closing shop at the care center for the night.
Oh, I thought he was getting out of his apartment.
No. He's closing the care center for the night, and she's coming in. And that's why he's like, hey, like, where you been?
Haven't seen you.
Like, you good?
Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, she's just walking, like, in a straight line. She doesn't acknowledge him at all, and...
You just hear dripping.
Yeah, you hear dripping and grudge noises.
Yeah.
I'm coining that term. He was making grudge noises. Yeah, so he starts to talk to her. He's like, Yoko, what's wrong? And he sees that she's leaving a trail of blood.
He slipped on her blood.
Yeah, he slips on it. And you think it's water at first because she looks a little wet. But then he...
And the subtitles change to blood dripping instead of just dripping noises.
I'm finna make Gary make grudge noises if he doesn't stop.
He's gonna be the...
Yeah, you'll hear him in the background.
Every time we say grudge noise, we're gonna... Yeah.
Oh my god, he did it!
Look, grudge noise. Grudge noise.
He started.
He's close enough. We're starting the training right now. Live on air.
Anyway, she turns around finally, and you see that she's missing the bottom half of her jaw. So then the next scene happens. Karen's doing some research on her old-timey computer. Her 2001 computer. And she finds an article, a news article, that the OG owners of the house were killed in a double murder-suicide. How familiar is that to you? By the way, I laugh about it, but my mom was killed in the murder-suicide, so I can joke a little bit about it. The husband killed his wife and child, and they ended up in the attic. She also sees that the professor from the first scene, Professor Professor Peter killed himself. He jumped from his balcony. That's included on the same page, on the same, like, scanned newspaper. So then the next scene, the detective is watching the security footage from the night that Susan died. Well, they don't quite find her body, but they do assume that she's missing or dead. So it's a little bit different. The Grudge stares into the camera after the original video we saw. The Grudge just gets closer and closer to the camera and then starts staring into it all creepily. So gross. So then we see Karen go to go somewhere. She writes a note and she signs with K instead of Karen. Like Aren would be too much to write.
Right.
And we find out that it's the building that the professor threw himself off of. She speaks to his wife, Maria.
Me too.
And Maria is very happy to talk to her once she explains, I'm here to talk about your husband. She shows him some images and Karen's looking through all of the images and she starts to see something in common. She starts to see this woman that she recognizes from the news article. Any guesses on who it is? It's Kayako. That's the woman in the pictures. She's not the Grudge yet in the pictures. So, then she's like, oh my god, I have to run and tell the detective. So, the next scene, the professor, it's one of those time jumps again. The professor is receiving his mail. He receives a letter from Kayako, and he decides to go to her house and, just check in on things. So the professor goes to the home to find Toshio cut up. Like, he's got so many, scars and his knee's all messed up. His knee's quite bloody. And he asks Toshio, in perfect Japanese, by the way, he asks Toshio if his mother's home. And he responds by passing out. So the professor goes into the house and tries to care for him. And he sees a ripped up image. It looks almost like a puzzle, so he puts it together. And it's the same one that Karen found at the beginning of the movie. She finds the image and the diary. And it has the woman, Kayako's face cut out of it. So then he hears the cat meow. And he's just like, whatever. And so he looks at the cat for a moment, and then he looks outdoors to see if he can see anybody coming near. And we see Toshio screaming inaudibly. And at this point, he looks like a live child. So it's a little weird that he's screaming into the window. You know what I mean? Anyway, the next scene, Karen goes home to find that Doug has gone to the house to find her. She runs through the street, another jaywalking incident, to catch up to him. Oh no, Grudge noises as he's in the house is what I wrote. He's in the house and he's just looking around all dumb. And then you hear, So, she comes in and she hears a man talking. And she walks up the stairs and it's the professor calling somebody. But that's impossible because the professor's dead. So, he speaks to Toshio, who stares at Karen. Toshio stares at Karen the entire time. The professor stares at her, but he doesn't actually acknowledge her. It seems as though he's trying to figure out what Toshio's looking at, but he doesn't see Karen himself. And then he walks into the room where everything's been happening, where Yoko was sucked up into the attic, where they found the attic entrance where Matt and Jennifer were, and, where Emma was standing looking at the attic when she was all freaked out. This is the room where everything's happening. And it is quite decorated. There's a lot of things going on. And he finds a bunch of pictures that have Kayako's face cut out of them. An alarming amount of pictures with Kayako's face cut out of them. First of all, one picture is alarming. 10 psychopathic.
Yeah.
There's 40 pictures of Kayako's face cut out of them. It's ridiculous. So, he finds her diary as well in this pile of pictures, and he begins to read it. And he finds out that the woman is in love with him. Kayako was a previous student, and that's why she was in all the pictures, and he really didn't regard her as anything special. When he saw that he had letters from Kayako, he was just like, oh, this is a previous student. He was very nonchalant about it. It wasn't like, oh, this was one of my favorite students that I had previously.
Oh, he stated, I don't remember her.
Yeah. So, him going to the house was like, this seems like she's in trouble, you know? Because why are you writing so many letters to me? So, an image falls, and Karen and Peter both reach for it. It seems as though she's a ghost, because he feels her presence, but he doesn't see her. He reaches for her, or what we think is her, because the camera zooms to show the images of Kayako's face, the little cutout parts, are pinned up against the wall, and there is a ton of blood behind them. A ton of blood drips behind him. So he's sort of really apprehensive, and then he starts to notice the flies, and of course, as he moves closer and closer to the attic, there's more and more flies, and then he sees Kayako's body drop from the attic. And she's, like, covered in plastic bags. And, frankly, it's awful. Just awful. So, he runs into Toshio's room. And there, I think he sees the father. I'm pretty sure he sees the father. But he may not. I don't know. But anyway, he runs down the stairs.
No. He just runs out the house.
Well, he stops into a room first. And I'm pretty sure it's just Toshio's room. I'm not sure, though.
I don't know.
But he's very, very alarmed at that point. He's quite shocked. He's quite upset. And he decides, like, just running up the stairs and running out of the house. And at that point, Karen is still there. And she hears all this thumping. So she goes into the room that the professor just left, and she sees the husband hanging. So, you know, yikes. And then she starts to see what happened to this family. And she sees the husband reading the diary. She sees the wife coming home and walking into the room, and the man clenching his fist. And then she sees Kayako being thrown down the stairs. And she sees the cat being drowned and the boy being drowned. And then she sees this man hanging. And so she walks down the stairs and she looks into the mirror. And Doug grabs her foot. Boom! Another jump scare. Doug grabs her foot and she hears the Grudge cracking down the stairs. Yes, she is making Grudge noises, but you also hear her joints cracking as they go one above the other. And I lost my place. I'm so sorry. She tries lifting Doug to, like, pull him out, but it's way too hard. And he's also in the state of shock that Jennifer was earlier. Then Doug is suddenly killed by the Grudge. Everywhere she looks, she being Karen, is Toshio or the Grudge. And the detective had come into the house right beforehand. I can't believe I didn't write this down. Before all of this happens, before Doug goes into the house, the detective is killed by the man, the husband. He's drowned in the bathtub. So that happens, but he had brought gasoline to the house in order to get rid of it. So Karen reaches into Doug's pocket and she finds a lighter and she kicks the gas can. She tries to throw it, but the Grudge tries to grab her and stop it. And then, after that, she, like, finally does throw it. So, then the scene changes. And the second detective is in a morgue, and he's looking at this body that's under a white sheet. And you can assume that it's Doug. Karen's in the hospital. And the doctor says that they were able to save the house and that Karen was coming to identify the body. Karen goes to lift the sheet. But before she does, she sees the arm of the Grudge pop out. And then it changes to Doug's arm. And she's just really, really upset. She's really, really upset. She has quite a few injuries, but they're all relatively minor. And after...
Especially for just getting out of a fire.
Yeah.
And she was
a gas fire.
A gas fire that she was sitting in.
Yes.
And that's what they were like, it's crazy how she came out unharmed.
Yes.
It's like, dude, she'd have had, like, some 5th degree burns. It's not even a thing, but that's what she should have had.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the chimp crazy lady that we were just watching this morning.
Yes.
Who was like, oh, by the way, this is talking about animal abuse, but don't worry about it, and I am going to spoil Chimp Crazy, so you may want to skip ahead in the video.
An hour into this random
video
about the Grudge.
Shush. So, Chimp Crazy, the lady says that this one chimp, after she was ordered by PETA to surrender these animals to a nature sanctuary, one of them is missing. It's Tonka. Tonka's this famous chimp. Tonka's actually in her basement. And Cameron and I were the whole time going, Tonka's alive. Because she keeps saying, well, Tonka died right before, the day before they had to take him. Tonka died of natural causes. He had an enlarged heart. And we cremated him at 170 degrees.
Said, damn, y'all slowly roasted him?
Yeah, we cremated him at 170 degrees, and then, his ashes were there. And the story did not add up, right? Because there was a forensic pathologist that was like, no, when you, in humans and animals, anything with bones, when you cremate somebody or something, there are bones left over, and then those bones are pulverized into the ashes that you receive. It's not an A to B translation of body to ashes.
Yeah, body to a powder form.
There are multiple steps in between. And that's what this reminded me of. Was like, she sat in this gas fire. Nothing happened to her. Just like Tonka died of natural causes and was cremated in the backyard. Anyway, also, this isn't a spoiler necessarily, because,
no, not at all.
This is a documentary.
Yeah. So,
you could look it up right now and try to find out where Tonka is, But anyway, the movie ends as Karen is standing there and crying, and the camera shifts after she sees the Grudge's arm, which turns to Matthew's arm. Behind her is the Grudge, and she goes to turn, and the Grudge looks at her dead in the face. And then it's like, dong, the movie's done.
It was a great movie, though.
It was a great movie. I would rate that 5 out of 5 stars, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it has all of the great formula to be a great horror movie. I think, honestly, I had a hard time writing everything down because I want to make sure I write everything down and...
It was a refreshing horror movie because it was completely different from everything else that we've been watching. I know it's from 2002, but it's...
2004.
2004?
Yeah.
But that's still relatively new compared to, let's say, all the 80s classic horror movies.
Yeah.
So for them to have something new, love it.
Yeah, I love,
It makes me want to go watch the remake.
Yes, I agree with that. And I really enjoyed it. I really do enjoy when other, besides just white horror, this is Japanese horror. Mm-hmm. It's rooted in Japan, I really love when that makes it into the mainstream. When minority horror stories, because a majority of horror stories that have come out, or horror movies that have come out, have just featured a predominantly white cast. Another Sarah Michelle Gellar movie, I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
Scream, majority white cast. All of these different movies. I was about to say Scooby-Doo. Still, majority white cast, So, it's really great and really refreshing to see that there are, and there have been, at least there are people trying to make sure that these are pushed into the mainstream, these different stories are pushed into the mainstream, and I really love that. I really do. Because I think there's so much that can be done with basics in, let's just put it out there, just white American horror.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so much that can be done.
I hate whenever they try and whitewash stuff, though. Like La Llorona. That one was terrible.
In Riverdale,
Uh-huh.
they did it awful. But, yeah, so it's like, you need to have someone who understands the story to make the story.
Mm-hmm.
And having someone that understands why something is scary heightens the fear that's in the movie. Because whether you like it or not, these little details contribute so much. Like, things like knocking on the door versus ringing the doorbell. Like, something like that small that you wouldn't consider to be super consequential changes the story so much. Because it shows, like, a deliberateness. It shows some people don't like to ring the doorbell because they feel it's too much. You know, it's too obnoxious. It's too, like, alarming. So they knock on the door to be gentler. Like, it changes the story. So, when media is whitewashed, it's just awful. It's awful. And you don't need us to tell you that. But, you know, I really, really cannot stress enough how much I enjoy seeing these different horror stories. These different horror movies from different cultures. It really just brings my heart joy.
It brings warmth to your heart.
To my cold, cold heart. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to another Cinema Spoilers.
Well, hold up.
Okay.
What was your favorite scene?
Ooh, my favorite scene! I have to think about it. Do you have a favorite scene?
Mine was I liked any scene with the boy in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Toshio?
Yeah. He kind of drove the story.
I think so too. My favorite scene is when Karen and the detective are standing on the rooftop, and this is when he tells her about the tragedy with the family.
Oh yeah, this was too good.
Shit, I forgot to even fucking mention that. Oh my god. So anyway, he's standing on the rooftop, and this is when she goes to tell him about the images after she visits the professor's house. And she sees all these images with the wife in there, with Kayako in there. And she goes to tell him about that, and he goes, well, I don't think the professor killed himself. And then he goes, I had 3 colleagues that I watched die. Well, not watched die, but they worked on this case that involved Kayako and the double homicide, suicide, and the other suicide. And he says that 2 of the police officers died while working on it under mysterious causes, and 1 disappeared. Like Susan disappeared. Susan's body was never found in the movie. She disappeared. So it's possible that sometimes people disappear, and sometimes people's bodies are left behind.
I liked his explanation on whenever someone kills themselves, it leaves a stain in that building. And I really liked how he basically tells her, like, well, you're shit out of luck. You got cursed.
Yes, so
sorry.
He explains, in this rooftop scene, he explains the curse. And he goes, I'm telling you, this movie, there is not a moment where nothing is happening. There's so much happening in this movie.
It's all written with a purpose.
Every single second of the movie is action, action, action. So it's easy to forget some stuff even though I wrote it down. I wrote it down and they had a conversation about it. But I didn't elaborate too much. Because the next thing happened.
Yeah, but I just love the way that he explained it to her, like, yeah,
you're kind of shit out of luck.
Sorry.
He goes, I'm sorry. And
then just walks off. Yeah. It's like, yo! Here's your consolation prize. Tough shit.
Your consolation prize is being hunted to death.
Yeah.
God.
May or may not survive. I can't really guarantee your safety.
You may just disappear.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude. That was funny. His delivery was hilarious.
I know it was supposed to be, like, super serious, but it was just like, damn.
It's like, not to be funny or anything. It's just like being told, like, you're gonna die tonight by whatever. We watched this one movie, and I don't remember the title of it, but it was like a break-in, and they filled the house with balloons, and then somebody tells them, you're gonna die tonight.
I remember that.
That sort of delivery always makes me laugh, even though I know it's not funny. It doesn't matter how serious the actor is, how angry it is. They could be wrestling to the floor with a knife in their hand, and I'm still like, like, I can't help but laugh. It's just a little bit funny. It's just the sincerity of it, the
ridiculousness of it,
the concrete feeling of it. Like, you're so confident that that's what's gonna happen. Are you kidding me? So, we may be watching another movie like that, you know? Who knows? Who knows? So, anyway, thank you for joining the Cinema Spoilers Marathon that is going on from September to October. You don't know that, but you have seen the last few episodes being uploaded. Today is the 31st, so we're only a little bit ahead of schedule, but yeah, this is a movie we really enjoyed, and we hope that you'll enjoy it too. Anyway, stay tuned for the next video. And one last thing that I have to say. I know I've been yapping this whole time, and I know you probably have other stuff to do, like adding October 30th to your calendar. Why, you may ask? There's some important shit going down that day. I have a book being released. Double feature. A trip to the movies turns feral when 10 individuals are trapped within the auditoriums. An apocalypse caused by corporate greed leaves 6 children, 2 theater workers, a couple, and a mortician scrambling to figure out how to survive off stale popcorn and candy bars. How much of the world is left? What can be done to prolong their lives? Why are things so eerie within the concrete walls of the picture house? Find out in Double Feature. Now, like I said, that comes out October 30th, but if you're watching this the day it comes out on YouTube, you can also go to my Ko-fi, which is the first link in my, in the bio of this video, and you can get yourself a made-to-order double feature crochet blanket. It looks like a popcorn bucket. It's so comfy, so cozy. What wouldn't you say, Kimmin?
They're so warm. Get them now. Place your order now. That way they come in for winter.
Or fall, depending on where you are. It gets really cold where we are in fall. Yeah. So, get them now.
Crochet blankets are going to be the warmest throw blanket you can get.
Yes. Very comfortable, very cozy.
And all made with love.
Made with love. Super cute. And I will be putting a picture on the screen, of course. And, you know, just go ahead and order it. You'll get it before October. If you order it, you'll get an email. That's all I gotta say. You'll get an email. You'll know when you're getting it. So, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for checking out my Ko-fi. Thank you so much for adding my release date for my book into your calendar. I love doing this, and I'm so glad that I'm able to. And I hope that you guys enjoy my book and my blanket. And I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.